One frequent topic that often comes up on higher exam papers is plotting inequalities on a graph. Now to do this, we want to think about each of these equations with an equals in the middle. Now for this first one and the second one, I would actually draw out a table. So we want to draw a table that has our x values and our y values, and then we can plot the graph accordingly. So since x goes from -8 to 8, we could just plot a couple of values in the middle somewhere, something like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3, and then find out where they go. So for this equation, if x goes in as -3, -3 take away 1 will give you -4. Same thing for the next one, -2 take away 1 will give you -3. -1 will give you -2, and you should be able to spot the pattern by now. That will continue just like so. So to get this graph, we can plot these points and then draw the line accordingly. So we've got -3, -4, so we go along to -3, down to -4, and that's where that point's going to go. Same for the next one, and we'll notice this actually increases one at a time, just like that. So now we can draw a straight line. Now with inequalities, if we have the line underneath the inequality symbol, that means it's a solid line. If it's not, then it's a dotted line. But for all these cases, they're actually all solid lines. So if I draw my line on the graph, make sure you go from one edge all the way to the other, and there's our first graph done. For the second one, we'll do the same thing. It's much easier to draw ourselves a table. So we've got x and we've got y, and then same idea, we'll go from -3 all the way to 1, all the way to 3, sorry. In this case, x is on the left. We've got two choices here. We could either try and use y values instead, or we could rearrange this equation to get it in terms of y. That's what I would personally do. So if we started with x equals 6 minus 2y, we could add 2y to both sides, giving us 2y plus x equals 6, and then subtract x, so we get 2y equals 6 minus x, and then finally divide by 2, we get y equals, and we've got 6 minus x all over 2. So for this, we'll put our x values into this final equation, and that's instead of using this one here. So if -3 goes in, 6 minus -3 will give us +9, divided by 2 will give us 4.5. -2 goes in, 6 minus -2 gives us +8. +8 divided by 2 gives us 4. So we'll keep going. We'll get 7 over 2, which is 3.5. 6 over 2, which is 3. And you can notice, hopefully by now, it goes down by 0.5. So you'll get 2.5, 2, and 1.5. Now, because we know they go in a straight line, you don't actually have to plot each of these decimal values. We could plot the integer values. So -2, 4. So -2, 4 is up here. 0, 3, that's going to be here. And then 2, 2, that's going to be here. And you can see this is actually starting to make a straight line here. You could test other values, but once again, because this inequality symbol has the line underneath, it is going to be a solid line, and we know it will continue all the way across the graph. So if we draw that, there's our graph there. Finally, x is greater than or equal to -3. Well, if we have a single value like an x or a y without the other, then it's going to be either a horizontal or a vertical line. In this case, x is on this x-axis here, and -3 is there, so we draw a line downwards vertically through that. And remember, since it's got that symbol underneath, it's a solid line. So we're nearly done. All we need to think about is which part of the region we want, and we tend to label that with the letter R. Now, in this question, y is greater than x minus 1, which is this graph here. If it's greater than, it's above that line somewhere. X is less than 6 minus 2y, that was this line. Less than means below, so directly downwards from that line. And then finally, x is greater than -3. In this case, because we're going across, greater than would mean back towards the positives, so it's to the right of that line. And there's only one part of that graph which satisfies all three of those directions, and that's this triangle in the middle. Now, most of the time it is inside the triangle. However, it's not always the case. So always double check by doing what we've just done there. And because we know this region here is the area that we wanted, we shade it in and label it with the letter R.